Ginny French sipped her iced coffee and stared out the window of Deja Brew, watching people, almost all of whom she recognized, and thinking about her life. She'd been doing that a lot lately, and she knew it was a sign that she was sinking into a dark place. It happened periodically, but this time it felt darker than usual. During times like this, the idea of turning to a life of crime held a certain appeal. Not really bad crimes. A little bank robbing, maybe. Or an art heist. That might be fun. Although those kinds of shenanigans probably needed a whole crew of people to pull off. And that was where she got stuck. Becoming a criminal wasn't what interested her. It was the thrill of such acts, and everything that she guessed went into pulling off such a stunt. But not just the preparation, the execution, and the exhilaration of a job like that, but the successful getaway. All of that would go a long way toward taking her mind off how very alone she was. The whole life of crime thing was definitely one of the crazier thoughts she'd had. But lately, her wild ideas were getting, well, wilder. Being forgettable could do that to you. It could also wear you down. A life of crime would at least be exciting. At least it seemed like it might be exciting. Real jail, on the other hand, would be a nightmare. And considering that she never so much as jaywalked intentionally, she couldn't really be sure a big crime would thrill her as much as she imagined. Still, it had to be more exciting than the life she was leading now. Jaywalking was probably where she should start, though. But in this town, there wasn't much in the way of law. Sure, there was Deacon Evermore, peacekeeper, but she wasn't positive he'd ever actually arrested anyone. Not in the 10 years she'd lived in Shadowvale, anyway. Unless events like that were kept secret. That could be, too. The town had a way of protecting itself from all sorts of things, which was what made it such a haven for the odd, unusual, and downright cursed. That's why she lived here. She was the latter, and had been since she'd had the sad misfortune of touching a haunted mirror on the wall of the Myrtles plantation during a vacation to Louisiana. She picked up her drink, the heavy silver ID bracelet on her wrist clanking against the table when she moved. To the best of her deduction abilities, that was the incident that had caused her to become an invisible woman. Not really invisible, because invisibility didn't truly define her problem. It was close, a symptom perhaps, but it didn't capture the true depth of what had become of her. Ever since touching that mirror, no one could remember her. Not even for as long as it took to make her coffee order, or ring up her items at the drugstore, or do her hair, or bring her food order. Nothing she'd done so far had changed that fact either. Not even a return trip to Louisiana to touch the mirror a second time. Wasted time and money were the only results of that trip. She gave her cup a little swirl, rattling the ice. It was something, really, to live in a place for 10 years and have everyone treat you like a stranger. Everyone. The mailman, the dentist, the butcher at the greengrocer market, where she bought her meat every week. Something a werewolf like her needed to satisfy her protein requirements. She'd learned to deal with being a perpetual stranger, mostly. But one of the parts she still struggled with was the reaction from her fellow wolves, the shifters who made up the pack in this town, the pack she couldn't join because she was a permanent outsider. Without the approval of the pack's alpha, Rico Martinez, there was no joining the pack. She tried talking to Rico in person and finally approaching him in her wolf form. Getting his approval was the easy part. Getting him to remember her, that's where things went sideways.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it. at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.